Hey, Planet FunCon, how you doing? Woohoo! Excellent. That's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear. Welcome to the first panel of the con, belonging to the cosplay community. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Wesselman, psychology professor at Illinois State University and full-time nerd. I love doing these things because it provides me the opportunity to talk about nerdy fandom type things with my friends and colleagues. I'm going to introduce each of them and then we'll get right in. So starting our two guests to my right, Elle and Ash of Levy Cosplay started their collective journey in cosplay performance and competition hosting in 2013 and have won multiple awards in national and international competitions, including being the U.S. representatives for ICL 2022, Spain, right?
Spain.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they host the popular podcast show Shenanigans Cosplayers Say. Please welcome Levy Cosplay. And then on the further right, we have Dr. Scott Jordan, professor, cognitive scientist, philosopher, and panel moderator. Dr. Jordan has diverse creative pursuits combining his love of philosophy, science, and popular culture. Most of these are curated on his YouTube channel, Dark Loops Productions. Please welcome Dr. Scott Jordan.
Thank you very much.
So I'd like to start off with is just give my colleagues each a chance to tell you what initially attracted them to cosplay. So we'll start with Elle.
Alrighty. So the first time around, because I've actually been cosplaying for 25 years. We add it all together, which is a lot of years. Honestly, my friend and I had discovered Sailor Moon and then discovered conventions existed and you were allowed to wear a costume. So that's kind of how that happened. And then we met people there and learned you could compete in costumes and it spiraled. But I would say there was a small break in between and we came back in 2013 because of the performance aspect of cosplay, largely. And returned to wanting some time on the stage, and then things just evolved, and now we've been on stage in Spain, and we guest and work for conventions now officially around the country because we have our first booking on the East Coast coming in September, so.
All right.
I actually started cosplaying before I knew what cosplay was. I grew up in like an itty-bitty town with probably like 3,000 people in it, so I just really liked characters and anime and video games, and I had things around my house where I was like, oh, this would make a great Eric Gainsborough costume. It was just like old clothes that I found from like an attic, and my mom's like, go for it. So I altered them and made things, and it wasn't until a couple years later, I was just looking on the internet, and I was like, oh, what is this? And it was a website where they had photographs of different conventions, and I discovered that Anime Week in Atlanta was a thing, and this was like 98, 99. But I was looking on this webpage called Fans View that had convention coverage from all these different conventions, and then I discovered there was one in Chicago. And again, I also was like, I like Sailor Moon, I'm gonna dress up as a Sailor Moon character and go to this convention. And that's kind of how it started. It was a whole family affair.
We also met doing cosplay.
Yes.
When we were little teenagers.
So I was going to start with the official date of 2017 because that would be the first cosplay the world would call official. But then I'm sitting here thinking, when I was a Cub Scout, we had Halloween parties, and I'll only say this because it was so progressive. I went as my sister. And the reason I went as my sister because we look a lot alike. And my dad was cool with it because it was a joke on everybody else. So anyway, obviously when I think back, it was already in me there. But the first, Eric, could you do a slide thing there? The first cosplay I did was at the Con of Thrones in Nashville in 2017. I went as Jaime No Hand Lannister. My sister went as Brienne of Tarth from the Bear Pit. All those costumes were made by her. If you can look up close, she did a wonderful gash on her neck. We had never cosplayed before. We took 16th place, which for us was amazing, and I haven't done a contest since. But I love cosplaying with my sister. We do that quite often. And yeah, now I found ways to work into my work. So it's just a ton of fun.
Excellent, thank you all. So I've cosplayed probably 4 or 5 times tops, so I can only count them on one hand. So that's never really quite caught me, but I love cosplayers. I love talking to them about what they enjoy, why they do it, and that's why I like to have these panels. Although I just thought about when you were sort of riffing on the different ways that we cosplay it out of context, I suppose. The last time I officially cosplayed was probably my job interview, wearing a suit, because I don't normally wear a suit.
That's fair. That's a good point.
I was at a con a couple years ago, and somebody's I wore cosplay all day, and then I went out to dinner with some folks, and I have a habit of wearing cosplay to every panel. Sometimes just changing the outfit in the middle of the day for the panel. And this guy says, "Oh my God, this is the first time I've seen Scott not in cosplay." So yeah, the norms get set up either way.
So that was taking a break, Scott.
Yeah, exactly. Chilling.
So, what are some of the things that you see the roles that the cosplay community has in giving people a place to belong, to connect with like-minded folks?
Well, one of the things that you usually try to look for when trying to make friends is common interests. So a really easy way to spot a common interest is if there is something on the outside, right? That tells you, hey, this person's interested in something that I'm interested in. Because it's like opening a door, right? You know, if you ask that person about this fandom, they're probably gonna get a positive response, right? So I think, like for me, I wouldn't have half the friends that I have now, or even when I was a teenager, without the option of conventions and cosplay and meetups specifically. Because if you go to a meetup for a fandom, you already know those people are interested in this thing I'm interested in. It opens the door to a conversation and makes it cuts down on like the anxiety around that first step. And so I do think that for a lot of people, in particular, you will notice in the fandom and convention communities, there's a lot of neurodiversity. Something like cosplay helps that process because it is very obvious that those other people are interested in something you're interested in.
Can I just follow up on that? I do a little thing called What You Love Cosplayers at cons sometime, and it all depends on if there's anybody in the audience, if anyone comes up and talks. But this guy was doing Chainsaw Man, and he came up on stage and he talked. I asked him, "What you love about cosplay? How'd you find it? How'd you keep it in your life?" After the show, "Hello, how you doing today?" After the show was over, he came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm really socially anxious, and I really appreciate having had the opportunity to get up and do that." So you're absolutely right. It's very cool. Absolutely.
And I think, especially, like Al said, we started a long time ago. 25 years. But back then, you didn't have as many options for cosplay as you do now. So if you didn't make a costume or know somebody that could make it for you, like your parents or your grandparents, then it didn't exist.
Right.
So even then, there was another like added element of I can have this opportunity where I can talk to this person about how they did this, not just obviously they love this character or the costume design or the series or game or whatever enough to want to put the time and effort into cosplaying it. But also back before cosplay became fast fashion, like they legitimately spent tens or hundreds of hours to make something from scratch. So you also have, oh, how did you do that? I really like the way that you did this. Can you tell me more about that? And it was a great way to like network and learn things from other people, which we can still get to a certain extent today, still by doing competitions, which is one of the reasons why we still like competing, even after all of this time, because we still have that aspect of it, where we can network about also like the crafting aspect and not just the fandom.
But yeah, and that's definitely, it's like fangirling over a different type of fandom though, honestly, when you're crafters, because you're like obsessing over each other's work. So you're like,
Hype train all day.
oh, it's hype train all day. Oh, Crown was a massive hype train.
Yeah.
I was in the Crown Championships of cosplay this year at C2E2. you want to talk about like a great example of positivity and like how cosplay brings friends together. We have a Instagram chat that we still use that we all just like hype each other up in. But when we all finally got to meet each other, everybody's like, oh, that's so cool, that's so pretty, how'd you do this, how'd you do that? We somehow became obsessed with pigeons too in the process. We have emotional support pigeons now for Crown. We did pigeon races, I don't know, it's a thing, but it was silly. It was very much that that groupthink mentality occurred, and we had a lot of chaos, but it's a lot of fun. But you don't see that anywhere else. Like that freedom to just be super excited with other people, I've never experienced in an environment outside of cosplay conventions. I'm sure it exists. I've just never experienced it.
Well, that is one of the cool things is people are coming to the cons or cosplaying and they're looking for people, like you said,
Exactly.
doing similar things. And now, I don't have a cosplay crew per se. I don't have a cosplay tribe per se. Obviously, I'm 40 years old, so that was a joke. What I like to do is show up at these things and just kind of model for younger people that you can still be creative, you can still be approachable at the age that I'm at. And then I look for people who are dressed in the same show or dressed in the same space, and then try to create a photo of us doing something. I think there's one there of Elric fighting, I'm Professor Edward Elric, if you didn't know. Fighting a chimera, which is a human chicken chimera. I had no idea that would happen, but it's just a really fun picture, and it's a lot of fun. It creates a little moment, and then you move on.
Well, so there's, this kind of gets to the meetup that you talked about earlier, whereas, the sort of traditional meetup is something that's usually organized in advance.
Yes.
Right? And then what you're talking about, Scott, there's a meetup of sorts that happens organically, right?
And they do, and it's a lot of fun when they happen organically.
So these words that I keep hearing coming up from all what you're saying, this finding people who are just like that you share things with, play, fun. I mean, play is in the term cosplay.
Absolutely. Yep.
Right? Just fandom in general, but it sounds like particularly cosplay provides the opportunity to just express joy.
Yes.
Then there's, we started this with the idea of belonging and finding people who get what you get, right? Finding the people that you can have those meetups with. But you got to choose the character you're playing, right? And then you were talking about the things you get excited about, what other people do that maybe you can't, that you can learn from. So there is something about standing out too, right? The uniqueness that you see as a balancing act. Can you talk a little bit about how you see that coming into the mix?
I mean, I would say everybody likes to be noticed and recognized. It's kind of just an innate human thing that you like to be noticed for whatever it might be, So yeah, like we're all doing Crown, right? And we're all getting along, we're all having fun, but we're also all there to try to win something. Like we're also there to be noticed and be seen. And I think one of the things that cosplay does for a lot of people, because you will find that typically those in the fandom and cosplay communities are often people who don't feel like they fit in the typical environment. And so cosplay sometimes allows a lot of people to be seen who don't feel seen otherwise.
And I think it's a balance. So on the one hand, you don't want to be so obscure that nobody knows what's going on.
Sometimes you do.
Sometimes you do. Sometimes you do, and sometimes that's the point. But I know, just thinking back at our catalog, like there are drastic differences in the types of experiences and the types of moments that we've had wearing something from like an old obscure anime versus something that was mainstream popular versus something that's popular now.
Yes, it will be a very interesting, so we tend to do older work primarily. A lot of the early 2000s stuff still sticks with us. But tomorrow we're doing Has Been Hotel, and I have never done anything that popular before, and I am Lucifer, so I'm like, what is going to happen tomorrow? Because we usually, like, we're never on the ball enough to do anything current, and it would be very
Please
interesting
come on in.
experience for us to see what that's like. It's very similar to when my Oogie Boogie is downstairs at our booth right now, and she's always a very interesting experience for me because I'm not used to being recognized as what I'm wearing, and then people are like, it's Oogie Boogie! I'm like, yes, it is. But normally we're in an anime costume that no one recognizes. And it does add a different experience to, like, how you're experiencing the community when you do wear something super popular as to something that may be niche, but then it's really fun when you have the one person who recognizes the niche thing you're wearing.
Oh, my sister and I did Zeph and Garp from One Piece at a con a couple weeks ago, and suddenly we run into all these Luffy's,
Yes.
all these characters, and we did our own spontaneous meetup that went on for about a half an hour.
Yeah.
And once we were all together, all these people came by and saw all of us together and started taking all of these pictures. It was amazing. And for me, it's easy to find characters. I just look for evil old white men. And there are a lot of evil old white men characters out there. I've done Brenner, I've done Jamie, he's not that old.
Have you watched Wish yet?
Wish?
Wish, the new Disney movie?
I have not.
There's a new old white man in it.
Well, I got to get in there. But it's also, I look for characters that might speak to the work I do. So even though I'm just having fun, I can also sneak a little bit of philosophy and science in what I'm doing. So yeah, that's how I go about finding characters.
Like Professor
Professor Edward Elric, one is always one. That's a good opening line and gets me into multiple papers. So, as a matter of fact, I was doing a con once, and this guy comes up on stage and he goes, "Dude, I just read your paper." And I said, "What? Yeah, why else is this paper?" I said, "Wow, cool. Well, we can't talk about that right now, but let's go ahead and do the gig." So yeah, it's amazing.
So, picking characters, right? There's picking characters who maybe say something that connect with us personally, right? There's also ways of playing with character selection or creation, right? That can be something that you maybe are not, right? Or maybe you wish to be. Can you talk a little bit about the dynamics of that?
That's my favorite game. I don't want to play myself. Like, no thanks. No, I like to play villains a lot. I actually play a lot of male characters, primarily. So it's actually, we're getting to a 50-50 right now. I'm playing a lot more female characters than I normally do, but that's just what's working with our projects right now. But I have an affinity for playing villains, or just really pretty full of themselves men who think they're like the greatest thing in the world. I tend to play those, but that is not me. I would say, I am probably pretty similar to Lucifer, honestly. That's Steve from Our Flag Means Death. Yeah, that's closer to me, personality-wise. And I am working on a female version of Steed as well. But I love playing the characters that are not myself because it's just fun to have that experience of their excessive confidence, and villains are just really fun to play.
Yep.
So you've got the characters that you play that are, you relate to on some sort of personal level, and then you've got characters that you maybe recognize, those traits in that you want to kind of play around with, especially if you're doing meetups or photo shoots or, things that are competitions, things where you're performing intentionally, things that are planned. But there's plenty of other ways to kind of incorporate it too. We've done group projects a lot, and it might just be what characters are open out of this particular group that we want to do. Because you can have multiples, but it's more fun if you don't. So, we decided that we were going to do all the main villains from Sailor Moon, a group of 5 of us. So we all just picked one person from each season, and it worked out really well. Not everybody was super into the particular character that they did, but we all wanted to do it together, and that was part of our collaboration as a group.
That was the best collaboration ever. Best skit.
Sometimes the first time I cosplayed Yuna from Final Fantasy X, I was not actually familiar with 10. I mean,
Yeah.
I kind of see my brother play it. I just really liked the character design.
Right.
So it wasn't necessarily that I loved the character or related with the character or really knew anything about her other than a couple minutes of gameplay. I loved the character design and I wanted to wear it.
Sometimes, yeah, I mean, sometimes you wear stuff because your friends are doing a thing and you want to be a part of it.
Sometimes I
That's
just want to
fun.
make it. And
Or I just want to make it, but I don't want to wear it. That happens too.
Yeah, my favorite villain to do is Dr. Brenner from Stranger Things. And what I like to do is put a little twist on a character, so at the end of season 1, we assume he's dead. We assume he was taken by a Demogorgon. So what I did was get a Demogorgon mask, carry it around as if Brenner had actually cut his head off, and he had blood all over his shirt. And the people who got it, they're like, oh my God, that is so cool. And then you went around and you run into other people cosplaying villains, like the Joker, and you have fun little conversations about what it's like to be a villain. I don't know how you guys feel about Logan. I consider him a hero, but some may not. But Logan gets all the love. It's the easiest cosplay I do, and everybody instantly knows who Logan is, and having an authentic beard matters. I've got pictures with people from all ages, all forms of cosplay with Logan, because everybody just loves Logan. So those are my two favorites.
Since we're on the topic of playing the villains, etc., I did have a question that was kind of noodling around in my head that I saw online the other day. There was some people I know from the nerdosphere who were actually expressing concern about certain cosplays. So this particular character was the character of Homelander.
Yes.
And
there are a lot of concerns about multiple costumes from that particular series. So.
yeah, so I guess that's one of the questions I had, because my immediate thought was, well, is it any different than playing other, well, I mean, we can talk about morally complex and sympathetic villains versus just flat out, but like, you mentioned the Joker, right?
Yeah.
There are certain iterations of the Joker.
Absolutely.
Where so I guess, where do you see this play out? And of course, no group is a monolith.
Right.
How do these conversations happen in the cosplay community?
So, the cosplay community, the downside is, because of social media, they have gotten very opinionated very quickly, and people are very quick to, what is the word I'm looking for? Cancel people for things, just very quickly, without really thinking or exploring certain avenues. It's just, cancel culture is very prevalent in the cosplay community, and we do need to start being more aware of how much damage canceling can do for people. But you see the debate around characters like Homelander, and there's another character specifically from that series that you will get blasted for if you cosplay her. She's a Nazi, so you will be absolutely blasted if you cosplay her. It's just, there will be no forgiveness, is kind of how it is. And it is hard to know, it's like, where do you draw the line? There's another anime series where the original drawings, Jujutsu Kaisen, the original Jujutsu Kaisen, the costumes have swastikas on them, because the swastika means something different in Japan than it means in our culture, in German culture. So there are versions of the costumes that don't have them, but like that's one where people will get on you because maybe you don't know. Maybe you're not aware, it's like this is part of the costume, so it's fine. And a lot of people will be like, no, you need to change that. And so that is like a common battle. And there is no clear cut, where do you draw the line on some of these things. Japan does some stuff that we would not allow here.
Yep.
That wouldn't be socially acceptable or culturally acceptable here. And you see the argument end up centering around accuracy. And so the discourse will happen as the person will defend it for accuracy. If I change my costume, it's not accurate. but, you know, these types of things need to be considered, so.
Well, and it's, so, in the States, especially in, you know, Western culture, like Nazi, that's a hard line. Like, do not pass go, do not collect $200.
There's changing your skin tone is a hard line
Yes.
here. Do not do
That
it.
just happened in the Euros.
Don't-
The football league.
Yes,
Yeah,
don't do it.
Yeah, if your character is blue, that's one thing, but
But if your character has a natural skin tone that isn't your natural skin tone, do not do it.
don't change it.
Just don't do it.
But you can you still play the character?
Absolutely.
You can still put,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Because
And there's some people that obviously are going to be extreme about it, but
Right.
the general consensus is, as long as you are not portraying yourself as a different human race than you are, then that is socially acceptable. I know when Moana came out, there was a lot of talk about Maui's tattoos.
Yes,
And
and
depending-
whether or not you could do them if you were part of that culture.
Because technically, his tattoos are completely original, because they are all very specific to Maui.
Right.
But on the other hand, if you look at the cultural significance of Maui's tattoos, that's different. And I never actually saw like the community sway one way or another.
No, that one it stayed pretty neutral. But that's where it gets hard. Is a lot of times, if you're not looking deep enough into your costume you're doing, you may not know that there's a cultural. There's an issue with the earrings that the main character for Demon Slayer wears, because it's actually like. I forget what the issue is with them, but the symbol is a problem for like Japanese culture, even though it's a Japanese anime. So like when we do this character, you're supposed to adjust it to a different design because it's considered like culturally appropriate. So it gets really hard to know though, because you may not be aware of the artist's references.
Right.
First, it's far more obvious to know, okay, that is a symbol that is very known. Okay, I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't change my skin tone. That's pretty well known at this point. People still do it. But it's pretty well known that you shouldn't. But then there's those more nuanced things where it's like, you might not know, and then suddenly you have people coming at you, but you didn't know you were doing anything wrong to begin with.
Yeah, I'm aware of this because I saw the Homelander
Yeah.
thing blow up. One thing is the internet's not going away.
No.
So potentially being canceled is just part of life.
It just lives there now.
And for me, when I see someone cosplaying Homelander, if I have a reaction, that's a signal to me, not about that person, but about me.
Right.
What does it mean about me that I find that offensive? So for me, what I love cosplay is a laboratory, right? In other words, all these people are doing these things like, yeah, I've played Brenner, that doesn't mean I'm going to take over the world and do
Right.
those types of things. So cancel culture is just not my style.
No.
But, and I think there's something to be said for people like us up here who have the opportunity to say these things, saying use this as opportunities to check yourself. Why are you surprised? Why are you hurt? And instead of telling that person they're wrong, check why you're surprised and you review what you're assuming about the world.
Absolutely.
Well, and sometimes it doesn't even necessarily have to do with the character itself. Like a taboo topic in a lot of online cosplay spaces that are, you know, trying to be safe spaces is like Harry Potter is no go.
Yeah, Harry Potter.
It has nothing to do with Harry Potter and everything to do with the author. So there are some places you cannot talk about Harry Potter cosplay, period.
It's true.
Because of J.K. Rowling.
Does it mean you can't even cosplay, or just can't talk about it?
No, it's a no-go anymore
Yeah.
for a lot of spaces because of her stance against transgender individuals. So, and because the LGBTQ transgender community is quite prevalent in the cosplay community, most communities have taken a stance against the author because in support of the community. So it's not done very often anymore that you're going to see Harry Potter cosplay because it's typically frowned upon in a lot of communities now.
At least for anybody that's big into some of those online spaces.
Yes.
People that don't. And there's some people that know and don't care and do
Well,
it
and
anyway.
I haven't seen anybody like completely go after anybody at a con for wearing Harry Potter.
Right.
Like, it's just usually known that like, this isn't usually, like, we're in a group that's very, it's designed to support women, transgender, cosplay crafting individuals, to give us a safe space from the men trying to tell us what to do. And She-Prop doesn't allow any discussion of Harry Potter anymore, because they're trying to support the transgender individuals that are in their community. So, but again, I haven't seen it. We have a friend who cosplays a Death Eater. That's all they cosplay, is a Death Eater. They've gone to tons of cons, it's been fine. We have another friend who runs like a Harry Potter adjacent convention, and they're fine. It's just one of those where you have to know where you're at, to whether or not it's like, and I think that's in general with a lot of this stuff, is you have to be aware of what your audience is to what's going to be acceptable.
And how much crap can you take when you bother people?
It's a lot. I mean, it is a lot to keep track of, and unfortunately, social media has caused us to have to keep track of a lot more things than I think we would like.
If I could just follow up, I mean, this does give us some insight into the nature of community, because it's not about, community doesn't mean that you accept everybody.
Absolutely, it's not all sunshines and rainbows.
All groups have boundaries, right? All groups, so I think that's important, because we often talk about cosplay communities as inclusive.
Yes.
And I would argue they're just as exclusive
Absolutely.
as any typical group. And that's not me condemning cosplay, I love it. It's just, I think that gives me a way to be in these spaces and see Homelander, you know, say, oh, that's Paul, you know, and have a conversation.
But I would feel like a lot of people are okay with excluding Nazis, so.
Agree.
Yeah, usually that one's
I
pretty.
mean, that's an easy one. Yeah.
But I think that's what we forget about community, is it isn't all sunshine and rainbows. Like,
Exactly.
there's complex parts about community and community involvement, and there's subsections of communities as well. And so it's like, yes, there is the cosplay community as a massive whole, but the amount of subsections within that, I mean, it's
Countless.
It's worldwide. I mean, it's humongous, and trying to keep track of all the do's and the don'ts is nearly impossible at this point.
Sounds like life.
Yes, it's a lot of like, it's unfortunate that we've gotten to the point where we almost have to like police ourselves, depending on what community we're in the cosplay community, to make sure you don't like make an oops that's gonna cause you a problem, because then someone's gonna like go yell about it online. But that's just kind of how communities work nowadays too.
Yep.
Well, and I think another thing that we have to remember is we get hired by conventions, and
Right. Yeah, and I guess we come from a different.
We come from like a different time, but we come from a different perspective where we are representing ourselves in the public
Yes.
at conventions and through our podcast, and we want to continue to compete internationally. So those are things that we have to keep in mind, that if we were not doing those things, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, I guess we wouldn't have to care as much. Yeah.
Because what that does is it opens up the question of what do you want out of cosplay.
Right.
And I think that is a good way to approach the whole community issue.
Yeah.
Yes, you definitely have to pay attention to a lot less things if you're just coming to hang out with your friends.
Yep.
Yes.
And you're not working for the convention you're at.
Yep.
Yes.
You're not trying to get them to send you to a fabulous convention on the East Coast. 'Cause I'm really excited about going on a vacation con. I'm excited about Vacation Con. But we also didn't anticipate being part of the guesting part of the cosplay community either. It happened.
Happy accident.
It was a happy accident. It was not, and it does come with, I guess, some of those downsides where you do have to police yourself a little bit more. You do have to be more aware of the do's and don'ts that are out there at the moment, because if we are here representing a convention, we need to make sure that we are up to date on what is and isn't, you know, socially acceptable, so that we can continue to maintain that for the event that we're at. And unfortunately, it also means we have to do that when we're not guesting and we're just playing kids.
Yeah, I think you're right, and you're tapping into something that happens at work every day. In terms
Yeah,
of what clothes
it is.
people are allowed to wear,
Yeah.
what words they're allowed to use. The same thing is going on in our communities. And I'm not trying to saying that in any way to be negative. I just want everybody's eyes wide open,
Right.
about what it is that we're doing.
Well, in different roles
Yes.
have different requirements.
Absolutely.
When I was working in administration was different than when I was working in clerical.
Yes.
Was different when I decided I didn't want to do administration and became a caseworker. So like my quote unquote uniform that I would wear to work,
Yes.
like the clothes that I chose
The
to wear
cosplay
were
for
completely
work.
different. Yeah, my work cosplay was completely different depending on which office I was sitting in.
We
Totally.
talk about all the time how we have a con wardrobe.
Yes.
Like clothes we only wear at conventions because they don't really fit anywhere else in our lives. So they're our convention wardrobe.
Agreed. That's just one side of the closet.
It is. It takes up a whole drawer.
Yeah.
It lives there. I don't have
And the
enough
other
con to
is the
wear
stuff
all.
I don't have enough closet for that, so it's in a completely different space.
I mean, mine has slowly worked its way into my regular wardrobe, but I also wear a t-shirt and scrubs to work every day, so that's like all I get. most of the time.
And what each of you are sort of saying about the different aspects of cosplay, wardrobe, etc., also gets to just the concept of what is identity.
Yes.
Right? We have an identity, or even multiple identities. Right? Humans are complex. We have different backgrounds, different aspects to ourselves, and in certain contexts, we're going to play some up, play some down. Or we have to choose. Like, so, I don't like to dress up a whole lot. Even when I teach, I try. I don't wear my rock t-shirts necessarily. But I'm also not coming in with dressed to the nines either. And I have to own the fact that if that may not necessarily garner me a certain amount of respect from some of my students, and from others it might, right? Because I'm being modeling differently. Right. If I do come into a class and I'm wearing my anime shirt or whatever, or my Superman shirt, there's going to be people in the back who are like Spider-Man. Right? So, but it is, we do walk in different spheres in life.
Yep.
It's very much knowing your audience.
Yes.
Like, who are you playing to at that time?
We still have some time, but I want to take a brief pause and offer the audience a chance to toss some questions out to the panel, if you have them.
We don't bite, we promise.
What are your burning questions?
So what was your favorite cosplay you've done so far?
Oh, that's a hard question.
That is a hard question.
Because for different reasons, different ones are fabulous.
Crowd reaction, I would say, Logan. It was just so instant, and everybody from every generation wanted a picture with Logan. That was a cool day. That was a really cool day. Intellectually, it's Professor Edward Elric. That's my favorite one. Edward Elric is not as well known as Logan. So.
I guess favorite group project by far is still the Salem and Villains. That was great. I would say, it's so hard because they're all good for different reasons, but probably Judar. So that is, we did Moggy Labyrinth of Magic for internationals. So yes, that one. So I would say, yeah, probably Judar, largely because of the experience that's attached to that costume.
That's valid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to do Steve Bonnet.
I love Steed. I can't wait to finish Steed. I want to run around to Steed.
What are you doing, Steve, as green?
I'm doing the green coat, but I'm doing a feminine version.
Okay.
So, and then Ashley has a feminine version of Blackbeard.
Yeah, cool.
So,
Yeah.
yes.
I like a lot of our like improv play that we do, so
Yeah.
I would say looking more, even some of the more casual stuff like We did Anastasia and Dimitri.
That was a fun.
We did Deku and his mom.
That was also.
That was super wholesome.
That was wholesome content.
We did Marinette and Adrian from Miraculous Ladybug.
Okay, and then we had children following us everywhere.
Yes.
That was also, the little girls were really obsessed with me as Adrian, and it was really, really cute.
Yes.
And then I was Cat Noir later, and they were like, oh, we saw Adrian earlier, and now Cat Noir is here.
My favorite was when we were at
the elevator?
We were at a con and we were standing next to the lobby, and I was with Cat Noir as Marinette, and then a ladybug walked by. So spoiler, if you haven't watched the show that's been out for like 10 years at this point, Marinette is Ladybug. So I'm standing there with Cat Noir, and we're talking to this family, like these two little girls and their mom, and then a ladybug walked by, and mom goes, oh look, it's Ladybug, and the girl, like, the 3-year-old kind of looked at her and goes, because I was clearly standing right next to Cat Noir, which means that is obviously an imposter.
There were little girls that we ran into in the hallway when I was Adrian that were asking where Ladybug was, and they were really, really cute.
I wasn't at that con.
You weren't at that con.
That's why they were asking.
That's what they were asking. And I was like, I don't know, I need you to help. They were like, we saw her. It's like, oh, you have to tell me where she is. It was really cute. It was precious. All of the Miraculous Ladybug interactions have always been really adorable.
Yeah, I bet.
Kids are so stinking cute.
Well, the kids, they might as well be at Disney World.
Oh, I know, right? Well, and we don't do a lot of costumes that the kids recognize. Every once in a while, with my Oogie Boogie, the kids will get really excited when they figure out what it is. But we don't do a lot of costumes that are like super kid friendly.
No, like Disney princess.
Because we don't do Disney really at all or anything like that, so they don't normally recognize what we're doing.
Well, what I was getting to is once I played Logan and I had to take a break because the claws were hurting my head. So I put him on a window and I'm sitting there taking a break. The little kid comes up and he says, can I play with your claws? So I said, sure. So he ended up putting them on. We took a little picture. It was awesome. I asked his parents if it was okay, of course. But those are just wonderful moments. We were doing a One Piece panel. We were all cosplaying One Piece characters, and it turned out nobody in the audience knew One Piece. So after about 10 minutes, this little boy says, hey, what'd you guys think of Spider-Man? And so we start talking about Spider-Man, and next thing you know, we give him the mic, and he stands up and he's analyzing Spider-Man for us.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of moments I like to create. And his grandpa sitting there with the phone, filming it all. She went with the family that night. So.
How can I forget about baby Harley?
Yeah.
I couldn't forget about her. I got followed around by a 5-year-old dressed as Harley while I was dressed as Harley, and she wanted to invite me to her house for a party. So I did just once, C2 did a performance contest. And so I was dressed in No Flutters version of Harley, so there's bazillion rhinestones and the whole 9 yards. And after we were done on stage, I got off stage and there was this little girl that was dressed as Harley, and her mom was like, she really wants to talk to you. Well, I talk in the Batman the Animated Series accent when I'm Harley, so the whole time I'm talking to her in the accent, and she's just following me around, and mom's like, is this okay? I'm like, it's fine. I don't care. But we're like skipping down the hallway, leaving like there's pictures somewhere that we have that her mom sent us that we don't put online, obviously, because she's not that little anymore, she's big now. Because I still am friends with her mom on Instagram. But I just remember that she really wanted us to come and have a party at her house. And it was like,
she wanted you to jump on her trampoline.
She wanted me to come over and have a sleepover and jump on her trampoline. That's what it was. That's what it was. It was the cutest thing I've ever experienced in my entire life.
What I love about these various stories is not just community in terms of finding peers, right? But this intergenerational dynamic. And as someone who studies fandom, I'm also a fan myself, and the importance of these spaces, having this intergenerational sort of form of play is very, very important. I mean, I remember teaching a class on fandom, and some of the students, expressing frustration that when they would talk about their fandom to their friends and family, they would be told to grow up. And my response is, well, that's what growing up is boring. I don't want to grow up.
My mom, we went to visit my aunt when I was 15, who lives in the Pacific Northwest, and we're on our way from the airport to the ferry, because she lived, you had to take a ferry to get to her house, and we're talking about stuff, and she's talking about dog sitting, I think, and one of the dogs that she dog sat, its name was Yuki, and so I said, oh, it's white. And she's like, how do you know that? And I was like, it's the Japanese word for snow. She's like, why do you know that? And my mom goes, oh, well, she's in a cult. I was 15, and I was like, thanks, Mom. Yeah. And obviously, like, she didn't really think that because she took me to anime conventions, but my relationship with my mother because of that is drastically different than, let's say, my dad, who's always, supported and like comes to performances. And
your dad came all the way to Detroit to watch us do the preliminaries for you.
Yeah, my entire family like drove the 7 hours to Detroit to come watch us compete to try to win a trip to Spain. So yeah, completely
different.
different.
Los Angeles next time?
Maybe they might. You never know. They'll just offer to babysit.
Yeah, that's true. There is now a small child involved.
That was the first thing that happened
that
when
was
I told
prior
them I was
to small
pregnant.
child.
Yeah. First thing that happened when I told them they were pregnant, they're like, you're gonna need somebody to watch the baby when you go to Spain.
That's true.
That is true.
That
yes.
is true. We do.
Yes.
We need that.
And they did.
Excellent. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pivot a little bit so we can wrap up, and I want to give each of you a chance to kind of tell the folks where they can find you here online, any sort of projects you want to promote. So I guess we'll go in the order of slides. I think next we still have, yes, so Livy.
All right, so you can find us pretty much anywhere on social media at Lobby Cosplay. We do have the podcast Shenanigans Cosplayers Say. We are on hiatus at the moment. We're trying to get our shenanigans reorganized here. We've had a lot of life changes, so we're still getting ourselves reorganized, but we will come back hopefully sooner rather than later.
We're still regularly.
We're hoping to figure that out this weekend, maybe. But you will find us still at a couple of conventions. We will be back at Colossal Con North, so if you make your way to the Dells, you will see us there again. I'm going to be at KitsuneCon in Wisconsin. I have the Wisconsin tour this year, apparently, so we are just doing a big tour of Wisconsin because we're in Milwaukee. And then I'm going to KitsuneCon. And then I'm judging for ChizuCon in Madison, and then we're going to North.
Yep.
So, if you're in Wisconsin,
Or traveling to Wisconsin.
You will see a lot of food.
Yeah.
I don't think we have any big projects planned right now. We're kind of in an ebb and flow state.
We're trying to still do that little relaxing thing because we're not because normally we just jump from one big competition piece to the next big competition piece. So we're trying to do this whole let's just make things.
We're planning ahead of time. First of all, what's that? But yes, we're also trying to just kind of make stuff because we want to make it, and we're trying to not concentrate so much on the big prize right now. So.
Yeah.
And you have a table and...
We have a table downstairs.
Yep.
If you are over the age of 18 and you want to join us for our comedy show, that is at 8 p.m. tonight after the floor closes. I cannot say the title because I don't know how old everybody is in here, but I can spell it. It is SH*T Cosplayers Say. It is a lot of chaos. I highly recommend joining us.
We have fun.
We have a really good time. But yes, we are at our table all day today and tomorrow. And then I am hosting the burlesque show tomorrow night. So you can find us there. Ash is our stage extraordinaire kitten. Going to keep everything running because Betsy and I might get off track.
What?
So you're our voice of reason for tomorrow because you put Betsy and I on stage together, and this is a bad plan. It's a bad plan.
This wasn't my plan.
It was our plan. But we'll also be here on Sunday as well, so we're around to chat. Please come talk to us. I am styling has-been hotel wigs pretty much all day today and tomorrow at my booth, so if you want to see me put together about 3 different has-been wigs, I'll be doing that too.
Well, thank you, Livy, for joining.
Thank you.
So, And Dr. Scott Jordan.
First of all, can we get a round of applause for Dr. Wesson? Organizing it. It was a pleasure to share the stage with Lee. We've talked many times in the past, but I don't think we've ever been on a cosplay panel together. So,
No, just the episode you came and did on our podcast,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
we'll have to have you all back at some point.
that'd be
so.
wonderful. And we'll have
Oh, Quad Peoria. Yes, I think we did. We may have.
Okay.
We may have. It was a long time ago, though.
Yes, this one was right, the first QuadCon after
After the pandemic.
Yes, after the
Yes,
pandemic.
yeah.
Yes, because we had Wigwig too. Yep. mhm.
Well, there you go. So, as I said, I like to mix my cosplay with my work. So, as Professor Edward Elric, I'm actually writing a book called Your Truth. If you know what Full Metal Alchemist is, you know that in the world of Full Metal Alchemist, everyone has their own portal of truth. If you'd like to write your truth in my book, I have a pen. If you want to put identifying information, feel free to do so. I can't promise I'll be able to put that in the book when I go to publish it, but you're more than welcome to do that. Just let me know when we're finished here. I have buttons and cards and stuff that'll get you to Dark Looks Productions. Eric, is there a thing up there as codes? Do a thing at Illinois State called the Extending Empathy Project. We do another thing called ReggieCon, where we celebrate History Heritage Months that are being celebrated nationally with a Zoom conversation about a graphic novel, usually with the writer or the artist or both, and those can all be found on YouTube. So, yeah, absolute blessed to be here. Thank you.
And slides over here. You can also find me at Illinois State University webpage. You can find me on the Instagram and the Twitter/X, whatever it's being called today, at Eric Wesselman. On YouTube, I have a channel called Digital Golden Productions. I also do work with my local independent theater called the Normal Theater, and you can see my blogs there. And then up there, I have the 2 pictures I could find of the very few times I've cosplayed. On one side is Setzer from Final Fantasy VI, and the other side is an original character. Is that the OC? Is that how it works?
An OC?
Yes, I have an OC from Blue Lantern called Brother Zuriel. So it was about my most obscure. So, thank you all for coming out tonight. We have a lot of panels, a lot of guests, a lot of wonderful merch. So please enjoy the rest of your weekend.